And if you can just get one key person a year, look at where you're going to be in 10 years and 15 years. This overnight success crap, it's just that. It's crap. There is no overnight success.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I'm so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Shannon Robnett. With over 25 years of experience, Shannon has been involved from start to finish on over $350 million in construction projects, such as multifamily, professional office buildings to city halls, fire and police stations, schools, industrial, and mini storage. Along with his knowledgeable team at Shannon Robnett Industries, Shannon is dedicated to sharing his expertise and delivering top quality projects that bring in numerous passive income streams to his syndicate partners. Shannon, welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Thanks so much, Kris. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and share with your listeners. I grew up in what I thought was a normal house. My dad was a builder. My mom was a realtor. And I would hear conversations at the dinner table all the time about the Johnsons want to sell their house and move their business. And well, maybe we could build something and rent that to them. And I kind of grew up with that, mentality that you always had to work on Saturdays and Sundays. And, you didn't really have any time freedom until I saw my parents retire at 50 and they had cash flow. They had, money coming in every month, whether they worked or not. And now 25 years later, my parents still don't work, right? I mean, they work, but, so I watched that happen. I thought I was going to go to college. I realized that commercial construction and development had a lot of that. And even in that, it took me about 10 or 15 years to figure out that building things for other people, while profitable, wasn't getting me any closer to my goals. I was creating a treadmill where I was creating money and I was spending money and I was paying taxes. And at the end of the year, I needed to repeat that process because I didn't have anything. I built it for somebody else. Somebody else was enjoying that. I created it for this guy and he took it with him at our agreed upon price, but I had nothing. And so it took me a little bit longer than most, probably. That's because I'm in construction, right? But the reality is I began to build a world that allows me the choices that I want to make based on the fact that I have cash flow coming in, I have projects going on, and then also reaching out and working with other people who maybe they have a tech job, maybe they're very successful in the food industry, whatever they are looking for the opportunity to invest in Class A, multifamily, maybe some industrial, but don't have the expertise, don't have the time. And so we partner up on stuff like that in what's called syndication and really make that a reality. So we're all achieving our goals. And then really kind of the last little bit I've been working on the last couple of years is just really fine tuning that to eliminate the tax man.
That sounds fantastic. So it sounds like you've had quite a bit of a journey up until this point. You talked about the fact that you were having this active source of income. And while it may have been profitable, the problem was you were encountering things like taxes, as well as the inability to free up your time should you choose to step away from it. And so you saw your parents firsthand being able to transition from an active real estate agent as well as a builder. And then now at the age of 50, they were able to retire based off their cash flow. So at what point did you start thinking in your head, all right, what can I do in my own personal business and my own personal life to try and structure it in a way where I can have the same goal as them?
Well, I had the goal to own my own commercial building by the time I was 30, and I got that by 28, but then I sold it, right? And so I continued to perpetuate my own problems. And it wasn't until I realized that, there's always somebody that's willing to pay you top dollar for your efforts, right? I mean, just go look at the job market, right? I mean, they're willing to pay you just enough to give up on your dreams, just enough to sacrifice your weekends, just enough to work overtime for them. So everybody's always willing to pay you just enough to take it from you. And it's not until you prioritize what you need and look down the road. I mean, it does take a little bit of foresight to look down the road and go, I could sell this today, but I really want to have something 10 years from now, And that shift started to happen with me, I would say probably 2012, 2013, when, the markets had changed and things had gotten ugly, and we'd kind of seen where, if you'd had some of these other things and you could do some of these other things, you could weather some of these storms. And so I really began to make that a real prominent part of my work thesis in, 2012, 2013. And have really been pushing hard in the last couple of years until exclusively we don't work for anybody else anymore in our construction company. We just develop our own projects because we see the value in just creating that revenue stream regardless of what's going on around us.
That's great. So, at this point in time, obviously you've been able to achieve that level of time flexibility up until this point. So kind of dive into that a little bit. What did your business look like prior to making that transition? And then what systems and different things did you put in that place to make sure that you were able to step back from that should you choose?
There's several things that it takes to do that. One is definitely, a really good understanding of what you want, right? A lot of us entrepreneurs get shiny object syndrome. And so we chase this and we chase that, and we've got our staff doing these things, and we've got our, we need this great person to do this, and we've got this great person to do that. And at the end of the day, we have a lot of people doing things, but the focus isn't clear. So, clarity is the number one thing you have to come up with in order to be able to know where you're going. And once you have that clarity, then you can dial it in and go, okay, I need one of these and two of these and three of these, and make sure that you do that. But that always takes more effort than most people give it credence, right? I mean, it takes a lot to find the right kind of person that wants to do what you don't. But that's one of the things that I've done a lot in my life, is figuring out how to find people that their strength is my weakness. And when you do that, at first for an entrepreneur, it feels like you're giving up control. It feels like you're cutting off part of yourself because you're letting somebody else handle that, until you realize that they're dancing circles around you, not breaking a sweat, and going home early. And that was part of your life and your world that you really hated. So once you begin to assemble that team, then you can kind of look at what else you can do. And in my case, I began to find other opportunities for me to be entrepreneurial in other places, in other avenues, in other venues. And so I've been able to create that multiple streams of income part of the deal, because I'm not looking at it from really the standpoint that I'm going to stay idle. I'm not the kind of guy that I built a system, it's going to go make millions of dollars, and I'm going to go, just sit over here in a hammock and drink drinks with the little umbrellas in them. I really I want to keep busy, but I'm doing that by creating additional sources of income, and all of that just takes patience, and it sucks, right? Because you want it now, but you really, it takes years to build a team. It really does. In order to build one that really does what your vision is, what your goal is, you've got to have the clarity, you've got to have the time, and you've definitely got to have the people that believe in that vision too.
I love that. That's incredible. And you're right. I think a lot of people, one, they can tend to get guilty of having shiny object syndrome. And the other thing is not giving themselves the patience and the time to see their ideas and their trials go through over the course of maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years, however long it takes. Many people often quit before they're able to experience the efforts, the joys of those efforts that they've been putting forth over the past few years.
90% of people quit. 90% of people. I mean, I don't know who said it, but, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And, if you look back, take somebody like Warren Buffett, right? I mean, one of the richest men in the world, he didn't even show up on the charts the first 20 years he was working. Never even made the charts, right? But it's the value of compounding. It applies to your time. It applies to your life. And if you can just get one key person a year, look at where you're going to be in 10 years and 15 years. This overnight success crap, it's just that. It's crap. There is no overnight success.
Absolutely. Well, you also made a really good point there in that if you are in this for the long term, you expect to be here indefinitely, in terms of this path towards success, this path towards entrepreneurship and continuing to build your business or businesses, you have to stick with what I've referred to and my business coaches have referred to as your unique ability, right? What is the thing that feels light to you that you feel you can do day in and day out and not get tired? And then what are some of the things that feel heavy? Being able to separate those and identifying what it is that feels light versus what feels heavy, then you can choose to hire out the rest while you stick to doing what you do best. And that has been a key component in our business, and it seems to be the case for many people.
And that's so true because there's things that we procrastinate around, even people that are not procrastinators, right? There's something that winds up on the bottom of their list. And when you can identify that and find somebody that, look, I don't know that there's too many people in the accounting industry that don't love numbers, right? I mean, it's not like you woke up one day and go, you know what? I want to be an accountant. I don't want to sleep from January to the end of April. I want a new number. But they love it. And so when you bring that person on your team, it takes that piece off your plate. And now all of a sudden, your books are better, your life is better, and you know where your bottom line's at.
I love it. And so, Shannon, I'm going to transition a little bit. We had talked briefly before we got live on this conversation about taxes and how taxes has also served as a really big component in your business and your ability to gain that level of time flexibility that you've been looking for. So at what point throughout your business did you decide taxes is really has been a problem and I need to address this?
Well, it's always been something that I've looked at and kind of focused on. I mean, look, Kris, for a fact, if you put out a book that said, I can save you 15% on, I can improve your bottom line by 15% without changing one thing you do, you'd have a bestseller, right? And the only thing you would need to put inside that huge book is read the tax code. That's it, right? Nobody really wants to do that, but when I began to really dive into that subject and really pay attention, most people look at the tax code as some sort of penal code, something that if you make money, you got to pay taxes. If you sell something, you got to pay taxes. If you do these things, you have to pay taxes. But flip that on its head and go, wait a minute. If you own real estate, you can depreciate it, which means you don't pay taxes. If you build and do things the government wants, you don't have to pay taxes. If you're, and even before this administration has been extremely difficult on oil and gas, but there's huge tax benefits for oil and gas because we as a country needed those resources. We still do. But the reality is when you look at that way, and I began to look at it that way as an entrepreneur, I'm a problem solver anyway. So I always looked at it that way and tried to figure out what can I do to use the tax code to work for me. And in the beginning, it was just 1031s, but it's gotten a lot more complicated since that, or a lot more fun because I like solving problems. And it's fun that 12 of the last 13 years, I've not paid any taxes.
That is incredible and incredibly eye-opening. And so can you dive into that a little bit? I guess, how did you first position yourself to better understand the tax code? Who have you since put into place to help make sure that you can take the most advantage of these tax benefits that are allotted to you? And what kind of strategies have you been able to take advantage of apart from the 1031 exchange since then?
A lot of people rely on their accountant, and I had this conversation with my accountant a lot. Well, can we do this? Yes. Why didn't you tell me that? Because you didn't ask, right? And so I began to study. There's a gentleman out there that does a lot of lecturing and has a couple of good books. His name is Tom Wheelwright. I have a tax strategist who I work with on an individual basis that I'd be more than happy to refer and recommend to your audience. But the reality is you have to kind of know a little bit, right? You have to know enough to be dangerous. You need to be, running down the hallway with scissors with a blindfold on going, I got to figure this out. But one of the easiest opportunities to, number one, create time freedom, but number two, pay little or no taxes is real estate, right? Oil and gas is another way to pay little or no taxes, although you're not in a lot of control with oil and gas because you typically have to partner with larger producers. But if you really start to look at it and start to look at the fact that, okay, I make $100,000 a year. I make just enough that Uncle Sam's going to take 25% of that. And I need to figure out a way to get out of my thought process here that I make. And even if you're a W-2, I need to be in a place where I can then take advantage of the benefits of that and start building a business that way. Look, I took a trip to Costa Rica. I went there 3 times this year, and we're doing a project down there, right? So I don't pay for my trips to Costa Rica because they're tax write-off for a project that we're doing. If you're going to Orlando, Florida, and take an extra day, look at real estate, write the whole trip off, but just start to think of ways that you can get around that. I've used bonus depreciation. I've used tenant improvements. Think about this. If you're working with industrial properties, the IRS says that you can depreciate the tenant improvement, which is what happens inside the building, over the course of the lease. Everybody hates a 10-year lease, or a 5-year lease. Everybody wants a 10-year lease. But if you take a 3 or a 5-year lease and you do the tenant improvements in the very beginning, you now are able to depreciate that without any bonus, without anything, over 3 years. So if you had to do a $100,000 tenant improvement, you may have financed that. You should have, but now you're able to take $100,000 over the next couple of years. I love flying, right? I've had my pilot's license since 2004. So I write off a new airplane every 8 or 10 months, right? I got into the habit of figuring it out, right? But let's just do some math. I know it's early, but let's do some math. I just bought a $400,000 airplane, okay? I got 80% financing on it, so I put $80,000 into it, right? I financed the rest over 20 years, right? So then I took that and I put that into service. Either I leased it, I created a flying club because I love to fly. A lot of people love to fly. They don't want to own their own airplanes. They can't afford it. We can buy better airplanes and all this kind of stuff. So I created a flying club and I leased that plane to the flying club. Well, according to the IRS, I bought a tool. A tool is 100% depreciatable. So I took a $400,000 investment, of which I put $80,000 in. I went to the IRS and I said, it's a tool. They said, yeah, depreciate the whole thing this year. So I took $400,000 off my taxes at 37%. I made a little bit more than $80,000. Now that flying club rents that from me, makes the payment, and pays me passive income. Even if you have an active income job, right? You're a W-2 person, you're paying that at the highest tax rate you can. If you can change that to dividend income or mailbox money, now all of a sudden you're only paying 18%. You just cut your tax rate in half with how you get paid on what you're doing, right? So that's just one strategy, but those are the kind of things that if you think through it, you can really begin to use the code, the IRS code, for your benefit, right?
That is
Pretty simple.
so powerful, and it's synergistic with the things you actually enjoy doing. As you said,
Totally.
you love flying, so you created a flying club and purchased planes, and now you're able to, one, not only have to fund that yourself for the most part, but also you're able to take advantage of all the tax benefits that come along with that as well. That's amazing.
I mean, I've got a friend, he really loves virtual reality gaming, right? Same thing. Went and rented a small space in a strip mall, right? Hired a couple of millennials that love virtual reality gaming too. Went and bought $300,000 worth of computer equipment. Wrote it all off. Created this virtual gaming thing that pays for itself and makes him about a 10% return on his investment. But he got a small business loan to buy the equipment with. Wrote the 300 off. There's all kinds of examples like that take what you want and make it something that is of tax benefit on just about anything you want to do. I mean, it doesn't matter what you think. What you tell me what you want to do, and I'll tell you how to create a tax strategy around it, so that you can then. Now, do you really feel like you're at work if you're doing this with everything you do?
Right. All right, Shannon. Well, I'm a gearhead at heart, right? So I love being able to take a car out on the racetrack on a Saturday afternoon. How can I structure myself in a way to be able to make sure the business can pay for my own cars, but also being able to take all those write-offs and apply them to our personal finances as well?
There's a funny little app out there right now called Turo.
Uh-huh.
What's a tool in a Turo business?
It's a car.
Your car, right? So, I'm in the same position you are, right? I'm buying a couple of cars, exotic cars that are under the 6,000 pounds. The IRS says, well, 6,000 pounds, you can only write off half the car if it's, that SUV you want. So now you drive this gas chugging, pig that you can't park. Because it's over 6,000 pounds, when you could drive, a Maserati or a Lamborghini or whatever you want, and then it's on the Turo app. So it's available for other people to rent, right? So other people can use and will use your car. Now think about this. If you've got something that is exotic, let's just say that you dialed it down. You've got a Tesla is a really popular one, right? Everybody wants to try out ludicrous speed once. Right?
Yes.
And so you have a $100,000 investment that you've completely financed. You have zero down, right? You can get a zero down loan on a Tesla. Then you turn around and put it into your Turo fleet. You lease that out at $125 a day, which is about what they go for on the app. You've got to lease it about 5 or 6 days a month to pay for it, right? And now you've paid for the car. You get to drive it 20 days a month, right? It's being leased out. It's a tool. You wrote off $100,000. You made $30,000 cash money because you didn't send it to the IRS. It's not a tax break. It's money that you did not pull out of this pocket and stick into this pocket. So you really made $30,000. Now, how many times would you have to do that, Kris, to be able to walk away from your W-2 job? I mean, when people say they're stuck in their job, I don't quite understand that, because if you've dialed that down and you're paying no taxes and you've got a fleet of 9 Teslas that you're renting out at $120 a day, I don't know why you can't do that and make that a reality pretty quickly. That allows you now you take that one step further and you say, well, okay, but now I'm washing cars and I'm doing all this stuff myself. Find another gearhead like yourself that wants a dream job of jockeying your Teslas around and taking them here and taking them there and making sure they're clean, right? Now you've got somebody that's willing to trade their time for money, and you've created the freedom that you've wanted.
That is so powerful. Everybody needs to take this, rewind it back 5-10 minutes, re-listen to all of this stuff, because these are things that you probably are already doing or you would dream of doing. And now you're just taking that component and being able to benefit it on both ends. I mean, that is such a powerful tool. It's something that is definitely a mindset shift for many, many people. But getting yourself to understanding what this is and what these benefits are allowed to you and being able to take advantage of them has been a critical component for many, many people.
Kris, I think that was very, what you said was really key too. It's a mindset shift. We grew up knowing that we had to pay taxes. We just knew it, right? But when you really shift the mindset from I'm not cheating the system, I'm doing what's encouraged because this is what's needed, right? This is what the IRS says. If you'll do these things, we reward you. But that's in your mind. Like most things, 90% of the power of what you're going to do starts in your head. And once you've harnessed that power in your head, your unique ability, your superpower, then everything else just clicks into place and rolls.
Oh, that's so good. So good. And Shannon, yeah, definitely we're going to be asking you for that tax advisor moving forward from here, because this type of education is something that not many people are very aware of. So that's key. Myself, I'm an anesthesia provider by profession. And once I graduated from school a few years ago, we were in a position where we were no longer able to take advantage of the tax benefits allotted to us unless one of us became a real estate professional. And so my wife and I, we had a goal up front to first make it so that way she can work part-time. Well, if she can work part-time, then we can make her a real estate professional on top of that too. So since then, she's been able to work part-time. She manages our rental properties. She's very active in our personal real estate business. And now we're able to benefit from all of those tax benefits allotted to us through our real estate investments. Now, I have also quit my W-2 job. I started out my own anesthesia business that I'm contracting out at different hospitals. So now I'm also able to take advantage of other things, like now my car going to and from work is suddenly a tool that I can use to commute. Right. And just being able to, again, reframe what it is that you're already doing, figure out a way to take advantage of them so that you can minimize your liability to Uncle Sam has been huge.
And you bring up a really good point too, because a lot of people think that they have to, you took a massive step, right? I mean, you quit your job, you gave up the security, right? Which usually freaks 3/4 of the world out, right? And then you began to contract that, but take it this far. Let's just say that you like, my wife loves crafting, right? Different kind of crafty than you'd think, but putting things together, making baskets, doing these kinds of things. If you have a side business, create an LLC, start that side business, begin to put your things in there, have some sales. The IRS is not requiring that business to be profitable, but then transfer your internet, your cable, rent office space out of your house, transfer all your cell phones into the business name. You've just created, through that little thing that she's going to do anyway, you've created a massive write-off because all of those things are now a requirement of the business. The business needs internet to market on Etsy. The business needs space, and they're paying a premium for that space, but you can rent all those things back and charge that back just with whatever it is your little thing is, whether it's a network marketing, selling juice or whatever, because it creates that business. And usually in most states, you can file an LLC and create that for about $100 and then create those tax benefits that associate with that without having to go through the steps of quitting your job to transfer a lot of that stuff into there, right? It's still a great way to do things and then make that big step that you made. And congratulations. And again, what you changed was just your mindset. You're still doing the same thing every day. You're just working for you, not them.
That's key. That's key. I love that. Well, as much as I'd love to continue this, Shannon, it is now towards the end of today's show. But before it's time, I want to make sure that we touch base on our Freedom 5. So these are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question. What is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
That has changed a little bit over the years, but in 2008, we saw the financial worldwide decimated, and we saw how Wall Street got bailed out. We saw a lot of things happen that the rich got richer and not penalized, and yet the working class just got destroyed. And so one of the reasons that I do what I do is not only to create financial freedom for myself, but to create an opportunity for other people to create that kind of financial freedom that's not in paper assets, that's in real assets, that's tangible, that provides needs for a community. And so the reality is, not to sound like Robin Hood, but Main Street needs a better option than Wall Street, and Wall Street's never going to care about Main Street. So creating that opportunity for people like you and me to own $100 million assets of brand new Class A multifamily or large industrial parks. That's really my why, is to be able to offer people that security that they deserve.
Love that. Second question we have here: what book has had the largest influence in your life? And I want to preface this by saying, not Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah. One of the things that I have read several times is a book by John Maxwell called Failing Forward. And it really takes the mindset of failures and converts them into lessons. Why you can't make it through life without making mistakes, yet you can either let them teach you or crush you. And in my life, I literally have $1 for every mistake I've made, because it's led me to the better process that then has saved me from losing thousands. And so that book has taught me to rearrange my thought process and to really look at turning my failures into stepping stones for success, and not just calling it a failure and quitting.
Right. We always talk about people are so afraid to make a mistake, and being able to shift, again, your mindset and think, well, I'm either going to succeed at this or I'm either going to learn from this. Being able to take every quote unquote failure and reframing it as a learning experience really sets you up for success, because at that point, there's no way you can fail. You're either going to learn or you're going to succeed off the bat.
Exactly.
All right, Shannon, the third question we have here is, what is the most impactful thing, whether it's a piece of technology, a habit, or a person, that has helped in freeing up your time?
I think the most impactful thing for me is to look at what I'm doing daily, monthly, and figure out what I'm not good at. Being able to look at it and say, every time I do this, and every time I boil it down and I put my list of, here's all my tasks, and here's what I'm good at, here's what I'm not good at, here's what I want to hire somebody else to do. Every time I've done that, my income has grown, because I'm able to free up my time doing the things that are beneficial this way. And so for me, that habit of culling down, and another really good book is That One Thing, right? Getting to the one thing that I'm good at, the one lever that I can pull faster than anybody else, is really the habit that I've been working on the last couple of years. And really, most people want to be carbon neutral by 2030. I want to do one thing by 2030. Just one. That's it. Just one.
I love it. The fourth question we have here: what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
Most people associate time control with money, but that's not always the thing to look at it. If you look at, like you said earlier in the show, doing what you love makes you feel like you're not working. So I think the earlier somebody can realize what they want to do when they grow up, find somebody that is doing what you want, and go bug them until they teach you, right? I have people ask me a lot, do you mentor people? And I don't mentor people, but if people are constantly there, and I heard somebody say it this way: be valuable to valuable people. If you come to somebody that's doing exactly what you want to do, and you keep showing up, and you're constantly there, they'll teach you, you'll learn. Even if all you do is copy them, right? But find out what you want and then go after it with such ferocity that you're never denied that. And that may be time, or that may be an occupation, or it may be money that allows you to go, sit on the beach and drink pina coladas. But more than likely it won't be. More than likely it will be getting into the thing that you enjoy the most, that gives you the groove, that makes you feel like you're not working.
I love that. And that is so powerful. And I actually want to bring up a really, really good point that you had mentioned at the very beginning of the show. And that is, your employers tend to give you just enough so that way you're willing to give up on your dreams, that you're willing to stay with them and continue to work. Like they're just willing to dangle this carrot in front of you just enough so that way you are distracted from what it is you truly want to do. And, going back to this piece of advice you had given people, just being very clear on what it is that you want, what it is that you really envision yourself, and being honest with yourself without any form of judgment, you will then be positioning yourself in a way where you can take ownership of that and make the conscious decision to pivot and really live the best life that you possibly can.
That's why they call it a job that's just over broke, right? And I'd also challenge your listeners, when was the last time your boss gave you more than you deserved, in your opinion, versus you had to go tell your boss, I'm going to have to start looking for a second job before they give you anything, right?
Right. That's key. All right, Shannon, fifth and final question we have here is, what is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
It's really pretty easy. You can just shoot me an email. I'm old-fashioned. Shoot me an email at connect@shannonrobnett.com. And that will start, that'll show you all of our social media platforms. It'll show you everywhere else that we can connect, but it'll also start the conversation. If you've got questions or if you want to know who my tax advisor is, shoot me an email at connect@shannonrobnett.com and we'll get you plugged in with him.
I love that. Well, Shannon, tons of great information today. I really liked how you talked about pivoting yourself from being really active in your business to positioning yourself to where you can take a step back and really do the things that you love from wherever it is that you are. I loved how you talked about the mindset shift that you had when it came to dealing with taxes and being able to say, look, I need to figure out a way to structure my tax situation so where I can benefit from all the things that I want to do. I also liked how you talk about how you can leverage the expertise of others so that way you can focus on doing what it is that you do best. I just want to thank you again for being a fantastic guest on our show, and I really look forward to remaining in touch.
Kris, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Till next time.